All right, welcome to the podcast today. I'm excited to have somebody from the other side of the country, the East Coast. And I've said this to you guys before that have watched podcasts before, and you know that probably 6 to 7 of my guests are in the Eastern time zone. Are you in Central or are you in Eastern? You're in
I'm
Eastern
in
time zone, right?
Central.
In Central time zone. So we have Alyca on here, and she is in Louisiana. And when we talk about time zone, I don't know if you know this. You're going up to Canada, and I don't know how it works in Canada, but in the United States, there's about 400 million people that are in the United States. We're creeping up on that, and 65% of the residents in the United States of America live in the Eastern time zone, which is just insane when you think of how many people that is. Or that doesn't even sound like regular grammatical English.
Right. That don't even sound possible. Right. More than half live in the
More
Eastern.
than half, yeah, 15% more than half all live in the Eastern time zone. Well, you're in one of those states, like I'm in one of those states, where there's not a lot of people, but just a lot of character and a lot of really neat, incredible people that live their lives. Because I think a lot of it is because we just don't live on top of each other. Like there's actually room, even the cities like don't feel like now Colorado we're starting to get traffic and starting to look like California, but I can drive. Like I went to California a couple weeks ago and I started out here in Denver, and then about within an hour I'm in the mountains and I can't there's hardly any people and there's hardly any houses, and then the further I go then there's I could walk and not see people, and then when you get to Utah, which is the state after that, then there's absolutely nobody. And and then I
I've
think
driven
about
through Green River, Utah on the way to Vegas, and it was
yes,
absolutely beautiful. But like you said, you see minimal cars. Yeah.
you see minimal cars, minimal people, and then the mountain time zone only has 5% of the people. You're in the central time zone, which has 15% of the population, but that's mostly concentrated in Texas. And then like Arkansas and through up, and then you get up to like Ohio and then Illinois and those guys that are in the central time zone that are super packed. But you're in like Louisiana, Alabama. I think Alabama's still Eastern time zone, but Louisiana and
Alabama Central time zone.
it is okay. So there you go. And then we go to California, 15%. Like I said, the mountain time zone where I'm at is only 5% because nobody lives in Montana. And I don't know if you've ever been to Montana, but if you ever get to go to Montana, you just gonna have to have some binoculars to find somebody because it's just,
I heard Montana and Wyoming were both very beautiful, but I haven't been.
yeah. So you're gonna have to go. You're gonna have to check it out. But I'm just so excited because I get to talk to another academician, a person who's way smarter than myself, which I'm kind of excited to talk to. And we were able to do some stuff on a podcast where we talked about why I love weights. And so we'll go back and talk about that someday, or have you go back and check it out, and I'll put the show notes back in there. But you get to go to Canada here pretty quick, and you get to go do a paper, and you get to. She is working on her PhD. And what is your PhD going to be in?
Information systems and decision sciences.
Information systems and decision sciences. Oh my gosh, that is going to be what I just finished a book, and it'll come out in I think October, the decision formula. But maybe I should need to look at all of your work and all your paper stuff and rewrite some of my book based on the decisions and why we make the decisions we make and how we make those. And then, oh my gosh, what such cool stuff that you're doing. And so, like with all our guests, I asked them to tell their story and to we wanted to find out who they are before we actually get to know what they do. And so I kind of started out just letting you guys know you are in for a major treat today as we get to have this conversation, as we get to talk. And so, Alyca, thank you for being on today. Thank you for taking your time. I know in the Central Time Zone, you're an hour later, so it's still light outside a little bit. You're not in the dark, and so. But tell us who you are, and then we will just chop it up after that and just have some fun as we go.
Absolutely. So thank you again for having me today. I'm super excited, a little nervous, but I think I'll be fine after I get to talking. So who am I? Alyca Nadine in a nutshell. So I'm from DeRidder, Louisiana. It is a very small town. We have like 5 stoplights. We still don't have a movie theater, but we do have a CVS with the drive-through pharmacy, and we just got a Whataburger. So I'm super excited. My parents, they grew all of their fruits and vegetables. I'm the only girl to 3 older brothers. Grew up as an athlete. You mentioned you were a track coach. So I was a gymnast. I ran cross country, track, basketball. So that was my childhood and how I grew up, helping my mom in the garden. I joined the military when I was 17 years old. So I graduated May 22nd, June 6th. I was in basic training, and I have been proudly serving my country for the last 21 years. I'm still on active duty, and I can't think of anything else I would rather be doing, honestly. Besides vacationing on a cruise, that is probably my life calling, is being of service to others. A little backstory about why I joined, if you want to get to know who I am. 10th grade, 9/11 happened, and they put it on the TVs. Then we had like the Channel 1 news in the classrooms, right? So Channel 1 news comes on and they show the Twin Towers, and everybody's watching, and we're like, what bad movie is this? And when they said that it was factual, like it was happening, in New York, everybody was kind of really sad. I was more upset, and I was like, how dare people come over here and think that they could do this to us? So at that point, I was like, I have to join the military. Like, I have to help. Like, I just have to help, because I just felt like that was such an audacious and bold thing to do. So that is the why I joined the military. I joined as a computer information system analyst, and I did 7 years enlisted. And then in 2011, I commissioned as a signal IT officer in the military, and that's currently what I do now. So that's me in a nutshell. I have 2 beautiful daughters, Madison and Izzy, and I just love them to death. Who am I? So my parents, James and Gwen, they have been married. I have to tell their story in order to get to mine.
Okay,
So,
I like it.
An abbreviated version, but like my mom and dad have been married for 55 years. Okay, so they got married in 1970 when my mom was 16, and like they have been locked at the hips and lips since. Okay, and they still are like happily married. They still love on each other and go on dates, and so that's kind of the environment that I was raised in. So I was married to Madison's father. He was my high school sweetheart. Like, loved him to death, and we were married for 3 years. And I will say, I think he really changed, because he was in the military as well. But then like he deployed, came back, and he like couldn't keep his hands to himself, type of thing. And I was like, absolutely not. I do not want to raise my daughter in that environment, because I think once you have a child, it really makes you cognizant of things that you allow in your life, right? And then it made me cognizant of how I give and receive love, and like what I keep around me. So I kept it from my family, what I was going through. And then when they found out, they was like, why didn't you listen? I was like, because like y'all been married for, at that time, probably like 35 years or something, or 40 years. And I was like, how could I tell you at 3 years that like I was going through something and I wanted to give up, right? Because my parents' opinion really matters to me. And so my mom was like, you can always talk to me. And like, you know, and even though I've never saw my dad be mean to my mom or raise his hand in any way, so I knew it wasn't normal. I knew it shouldn't have been tolerated, but I just didn't know how to have that conversation. So they were super supportive of the divorce. And so I was like, great. Got divorced, and I deployed to Korea. I think I got a divorce like August of 07, and then October of 07, I was in Korea. And that was when it hit me like, wow, you're a single parent, right? And at that point, I was like, okay, I'm probably not going to have any help. That's the reality. I need to get my degree so I can go officer, so I can give this child the best life possible, because she did not ask to be here. And so that my motivation to be great, right? So my first motivation was like to protect and defend. And then like after I had my kid, I was like, I have to make sure that she has everything she needs, right? So my motivation kind of shifted to where providing the best life possible for her. And so I did 1 year in Korea, and then I extended because they were like, you could go to college and you could, get promoted. Like I went to Korea E4, I left the E6 with my bachelor's degree and my officer packet submitted. It was crazy.
Oh my God. Wow. Now, was she with you? Was she with you in Korea, or she was here?
No, she was with my parents. She was with my parents because she was like 1.5, right?
Okay.
And so, but my chain of command was super supportive of like my professional goals and my academic goals. And so that was like my why, my driving force. Like I have to get this degree. I have to go to officer school so I can give her the best life possible. And that's super, super exciting. And I did all of the things. I was deployed a couple of times after that. My most recent one, I just came back last March of 24. Yeah, last March of 24, I just got back. And my continuing to serve has always been, to protect and defend. But the lifestyle that it's afforded me for my girls is super exciting. And I just can't be grateful enough about that. But I think being raised in the deep South and like, I laughed because I was like, I couldn't wait to leave DeRitter. It was just so boring. It had nothing. And then like throughout my career, I remember times I would come home and I would be like, I feel so centered. I would just want to come home and be in the garden with my mom. And I felt like everything was right in the world at that moment because it was simple, right? It's no traffic. It's no traffic jams. It's no like honking horns. You don't hear anything. It's like life is simple. And one of my brothers said that before because he likes to fish. And I'm like, James, why are you always fishing? He was like, because when you out here on the boat, when you're on the water, it's no traffic jams. It's no people talking to you. It's no cell phones. Like you're just out here in nature. And I think being raised in that environment and then always being able to return to my homestead has kept me centered through life. So I'm super grateful for that. And now like my most current journey, I live in Baton Rouge, me and Izzy and Maddie, and I'm pursuing my PhD, and we can get into that when you ask me about my purpose questions, because I read them and I was like, I'm not going to answer them. I want to answer them during the dialogue. So I read them and kind of familiarized myself, but I did not answer them. So you would get the raw, honest truth during this interview. But you don't know that you're not doing your purpose until you're not doing it. And it just doesn't sit right with your soul. And I will get into that a little bit more, but I've never not done the thing that I'm doing because I've been, I did it started when I was 17. And then the moment I did something that was, was different, I was like, am I being pushed out of my comfort zone so I could grow? Or is this just not right with my soul? And then I had a talk with one of my professors, and he's amazing. But he was like, I think you're going to be a translational researcher. Because I was like, I don't want to do this just for like my own accolades. Like I have to do something that helps my community. I want to publish articles that help people that don't have access to this type of education. So if I'm just publishing it just to get accolades, that's not why I'm doing it. But I want to do something that helps people. And when I said that, he was like, And it just, I never knew that there were people who didn't have like a heart to serve others. And that's crazy to me. But being around that made me realize why my journey in serving others is so important in the world. And I'll pause there because I don't know how much I'm supposed to talk. But
oh no, you're doing fine. And when I think about identity and the person that you've become compared to the person that you were in 10th grade, and all the things what would you say would be some of the milestones in your life that create the identity of the woman that you have become now? And then what maybe some of the challenges inside of that, it sounds like you had parents that believed in you and you knew you could do anything, but that's still got to be hard when you're alone in Korea and trying to, you got these goals and the things you want to do, but at the same time, you have a daughter that's at home that needs you, and the identity that kind of the things that you kind of went through as who Alyca is.
Wow. So you're right. So my upbringing and my parents and my family support, because my brothers, they like my family, I would say, is my biggest fan. So that is my springboard in life, right? That's what propelled me forward. My daughters are what keep me going that way. But like my divorce, right? My first divorce from Madison's dad, going through that and then feeling like I had to hide it, that was probably the first time that I went through something that I was like ashamed, because we're such a close-knit family that I couldn't talk to them about. So that like, even when you don't like the person and you go through a divorce, it's hard. It's a hard thing. Like, I'm glad you have your forever person, because it's super hard. You don't want to do it. I learned a lot about myself. And then going to Korea, that was the first time I rode a plane, right? That was the first time. That was the first time I rode a plane. I had like left.
Your first plane trip was like hours and hours and hours.
And I was sick as a dog. Like,
oh my gosh.
I was like on the plane with one of them bags. I was like, I would sleep, wake up, watch a movie. I'm like, we're still in the air. This is terrible. And then when I got there, you know, you're immersed in another culture. And I was single for 5 years. And I like sought God. And like during that time alone, I really got close to God. And I was raised in the church as well. But my parents are crazy. My parents are funny. I was raised in the church more so where she wanted me to have a foundation of God, but she also taught me the difference between like religion and being spiritual. And like, you have to know God for yourself, because you're going to go out in the world and there's going to be people that will try to tell you all sorts of things about God. And if you don't know him for yourself, you will fall victim to false prophets. And so she was very frank with me in that regard, which I really appreciate. But I was an usher at church, and like, so you got to think, I'm like 21 years old, being an usher in church, like very devout. I'm getting on the subway on Saturday, going to Seoul so I could take a weekend class, because I'm like, I have to get this college knocked out. So I think having purpose and saving my money, I was like E4, like I said, E4 to E6, I saved $25,000 there in that 2-year time period. And I know that doesn't sound like a lot now, but then I was like, I had a lot of money. Like, I paid my car off. I had like my IRA set up. I had money to buy me and Maddie all new furniture, because I just didn't want to argue with her dad. So I had gave him everything that we had. And I was like, I'll start over. God will bless me with more. And I think having that anchor, like I have to feel anchored in order to like grow, if that makes sense. So like that 5 years that I was by myself, and I was like I felt really secure in who I was in like every facet, like emotionally, spiritually, financially. Like my career was taking off. And then I met somebody who should remain nameless, but I met my second husband. And I don't know, I make really good decisions, but for this time, we were friends. I had met him during a professional development school, and he was like, I really like you, sweet. And I was like, I don't have time for guys. Like, I'm hustling. Like, I'm on my grind right now. I don't have no time for boys. Like, and that experience, we were married for almost 10 years. And that experience, really taught me a lot about marriage and the intimacy of it. Because I want to say that was a real marriage. The first one I would say was like abbreviated, right? But this one was like a real marriage, because I learned so much about myself. When you're married, there's no way that you can be like, you can't be married and have secrets. You can't be married and like be like your own person. Like, you have to be married and like fully immersed with this other person, I think, in God together. And I think that's the only way it really works, because if you want to be like this silo and try to grow and bond with somebody, it doesn't work. And that marriage taught me the importance of like being honest about like where you come from and your upbringing, and like traumatic things that happened to you growing up, because he was not, and he had not been, I think I'm probably the closest person that he let get to him, but it was some things that I found out later that happened to him. And I was like, why didn't you tell me? And he was like, it's not that big of a deal. And I was like, but it is. And it like you said, what shapes you, right? Because things that happen to you along your life, I feel like it really does affect how you give and receive love, especially if you don't deal with it. And so we did the premarital counseling with our pastor, got married in the church, like did all of the things, right? We didn't sleep together before we got married. Like we did all of the things. And as the marriage progressed, and things started to unfold, and I was like, well, maybe we should really go to marriage therapy about it. And he was like, I don't have nothing wrong with me. And I was like, but marriage therapy, right? And I was like, marriage therapy isn't necessarily like I have something wrong, but it's like it's maintenance. Like the car is not broken, but you get an oil change, right? And so he was one of those strong and wrong people to where like I'm not going to marriage therapy. And it was like it was eye-opening when I was sitting in marriage counseling by myself with the pastor that married us. And he had to have that talk with me, like, look, Alyca, I love you. You know, I want this to work, but and I was like, I got it. That was that, but that so like it sucks because it's like I always say, when you excel in area of your life and then you don't see none of the wins in hindsight, right? You only see the area that you fell short in. And I'm like, but I did all the things. I checked all the boxes. And I think can really prepare you for the person, right? Person be or expose or like it has to be joint agreement. So I say that made me show me how I do, and I think at that point, instead of getting upset that things wouldn't go my way, or I would now understand, like, why is it this? Right? You try to understand the breakdown in the process instead of being like, this ain't working. You try to be like, okay, well, hey, let's take a look at it. Now, okay, the wheel, the axle, this, you know what I mean? So it changes your perspective, your patience level, I think, as you get older. So that had a huge impact on what shaped me. And then I think this last deployment really pushed me out of my comfort zone. Because you're thinking like, oh, you know, I'm like, oh, I've been in Korea before, it's gonna be great. And they're like, no, you're going as like a rotational unit. And I was like, okay, what does that mean? And then when we get there, they're like, oh, you're like, you know, 16 miles from North Korea. And I'm like, oh Lord. And so the living conditions are completely different than when I was there because you're not stationed there, right? You're on a 9-month rotation. And I found solace. Like I said, I have to return to nature. So I had bought a road bike during my time there. And I said, I would never buy a road bike. Those things are like $5,000, like da, 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 da. But like our work, the intensity of our work and how long we work was so crazy that when I got off of work, all I wanted to do was get on my bike. And like they have a perfect bike trail along the Han River. You can ride from like Don Deshawn to Seoul, like really no cars. And I would ride, like my PR right now is like 58 miles. And I would ride my bike. And just clear my mind. And it was very, very, very liberating. And I think having that time with God, like, can you still see me? Okay. At different times in my life, when I am like out of my comfort zone, I think that's when I grow the most. And it's almost like I'm having like a outer body experience, watching myself go through what I'm going through. And then like when I come back up out of it on the other side, it's like I'm like a refurbished version of myself, if that makes sense. I know I'm in IT, so I say refurbished. It's kind of like a refurbished version of myself. And then I come here to academia and I thought I was smart, right? And then like you said, oh, you're so smart. No, it's like the more I learn, the more I realize how much I don't know. Yeah. And I'm like, oh God. So, and you have imposter syndrome, right? You're like, all these people in the room are so smart. And am I smart enough to be here? And then I start to write and I start to, you know, elaborate on my ideas and I expand and I grow. And then I'm like, I'm absolutely deserve to be here. Like God wouldn't have put me in the room if I didn't have a seat at the table. And even I just finished my first year of school and I'm like, the growth from when I started is exponential. So Those are some of the things that really shaped me. The first thing, like I said, that shaped me the most is like my daughters. Like having Maddie at 20 and having Izzy at 30. Even shaped my motherhood, right? Like when I had Maddie, she was like my motivation for everything, which she still is, which they still are. But when I had Izzy, I realized like this might be my last baby. Like, you know what I mean? So like,
yeah.
this might be my last baby because now in September I'll be 39 next month, and it's like, you know, I breastfed her for 15 months. Like I hug her a little longer. Like I do all of the things. Like I didn't take it for granted with Maddie, but I don't like spending no time away from her. You know what I mean? That's your last baby. And it just makes you really grateful and just like cognizant of like how life is a melting ice cube. Right. Yeah. And it's like you can't stop the ice cube from melting. You can only like enjoy the coolness while you have it. And
ooh, I like that. That's a great analogy.
Yeah,
because you can't stop it from melting, is eventually it's going to melt. I really like that. I want to just, and then we'll move on to another topic, but I want to kind of just dive into part of your story where you're when I think about identity, because identity is who we are. It is what shapes us. It's an ever-changing thing. And for some people, and I think even people who are watching this, that I think I know as Tony Robbins, somebody said the most powerful force in the universe is being congruent with the identity that we hold for ourselves. And we almost have to be, because we hold this identity and we say, these are our limitations and this is what we can do. And part of your story, there was this feeling of shame because it didn't work out the way that we have projected. Our identity told us it was supposed to. And then you were even at some point scared to tell the people that God sent to be able to help us get out of it, because of this incredible emotion that is probably one of the hardest emotions in the world, that is shame. And so maybe just talk a little bit about what finally changed in your makeup and your chemistry and who you were, that says, I don't care how much shame I feel right now, this is not going to be who I am. Maybe just kind of walk us through just maybe a minute of how you did that.
Like how I eventually came to tell, or because
something in your mind said, I have to tell. I'm not going to put up with this more, because I'm sure women, especially in the military and just through life, that never came to that. I'm not going to take this anymore. This is how I'm about this. I'm going to tell somebody. I'm going to figure out how to get it. And it's going to be a hard road, but it was a road that was better than the road that you were going down. Does that make sense? What I'm asking is,
it does.
And maybe you don't know how. Maybe it was just the grace of God, and you woke up one day and God said,
well, my parents showed up at my house, and I had moved out of our 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartment into a 1-bedroom townhouse. And like I told you, I'm not materialistic. I wasn't raised materialistic by far. So, when I left, I was like, I'm taking my pots, right? Because I had some Wolfgang Puck pots. I'm taking my pots and my bed and my baby's crib, because I love to cook. Obviously, I'm from Louisiana. So I had her crib downstairs. So when I would cook dinner, I would put her in her crib and I would cook. And then I had my bed upstairs, and I didn't have a table or anything because it was a townhouse. So I would just fix my food and I would sit right on the step and I would eat because it was just me. The thing that made me be like, I'm leaving, was, I told you it was a domestic violence situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He promised we wouldn't fight anymore. He wouldn't hit me anymore. And I had her, she was in her crib. We were in our 2-bedroom, and we got into one more fight. And she was in the crib, and I almost knocked the crib over. And at that moment, I was like, I'm done. I was like, I cannot put her in danger, right? I was like, I'm done. That was like the last straw for me. But then my parents showed up unexpectedly, which is random because it was an 8-hour drive from where I'm from. And they came and they were like, they came into my place and they were like, where's all your stuff? And I was just like, and I had to tell them, and they were like, why didn't you tell me? And then they took me and bought me like a table to sit at, and like I was like, I don't need anything. I have my bed, I have my pots, like I'm good. But they did buy me a table, I remember, and I remember like just crying, but I think it was more so like a relief that I didn't have to like hide anymore.
I didn't anymore. Yeah.
And my mom, that's when my mom and dad were like, you can always come to us, and that's what we're here for. And then, you know, my dad and my brothers had some few choice words for my ex, but they were like, we're always here. And I think that kind of opened the door to being an adult and asking for help, because I left at such a young age that I felt like now that I'm gone, like I can't ask. You know what I mean? Like you're grown now, like you're married, you have a kid, like you can't ask. And my dad and I, we're super close. We probably talk like 4 or 5 times a day, and that's being light. But he was like, I'm always here for you. Even when I give you away to be married, I'm always your dad. And if somebody doesn't treat you right, you can always come home. And I think as a parent, like reassuring your child that they're not alone in the world is like so important. And, you know, like a lot of times society has this thing like when you get 18, you're going to get out of the house. And it's like, don't, if they're not ready, don't push them and force them to be in a situation that they would otherwise be safe in your house, or be subjected to treatment that they wouldn't put up with if they're not ready. So I really appreciate my parents. And that was kind of like the why was I can't take it anymore. So yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that. I mean, I think the strong realization that it wasn't just you who was in danger; it was your baby as well, and
Right.
nobody's gonna mess with your baby, right? Which is so cool. We fast forward, we jump 20 years, right? Because you know, from the time you get ready to go in the military, now you're like running departments, you're in charge of people, you understand purpose, you've kind of, you know, through these evolutions of who you are, the time that you were able to spend just in personal development. Maybe you can talk about that a little bit, is through some of the things that you've done to make you better. Like, were there books that you read? Were there social associations? Were there great leaders that you were able to hang around? Did you just figure it out yourself? What did you do, or how much time were you able to spend just working on you? And then how much time do you spend now to continue that progress? I know you're working on your degree, so that's a huge part of it. But maybe in the future, what are some of your plans to make sure you're working on you?
Absolutely. So I took my first command in 2016, right? And that's like a company level. So you're over like 200 or 300 people, right? And then that's when I really, I mean, I knew I loved serving, but that's when I realized the level of influence that you have as a captain. At that point in 2016, I was a captain. And I was like, wow, like I can impact these people's lives directly. Like I can write policy. So I was like, I want to help as many people as I can. And then I learned so much about myself during that first command. I had an awesome leader. I had an awesome female battalion commander at that time, Colonel Benning. She was awesome. And I could see, it's nice to see people that you can see yourself in, because she had 2 daughters. She was prior enlisted. She made full bird. Like, she was amazing leader. She's retired now. But when I had Israel, right? When I had Israel, she was born with congenital glaucoma, but it was like Ray Charles, Stevie Wonder glaucoma. It was like, if you don't go to Emory University and get this surgery in 7 days, she will be blind, right? It was stressful. And so I hadn't taken command then, but I was slated to take a company. And I was on maternity leave, and I told her what happened. And she's like, you take care of your baby. I'm going to be here. Your command will be here. I'm going to save your command for you. So she took care of me. And I was worried about the mission, but she took care of me. I will say, when you take command, I don't know if you understand military ceremonies, but like, it's a flag that gets passed, right? And then the commander talks to you about your responsibility and your charge and your care for the troops that's under you, right? And you don't take it lightly, because like at any given moment you could deploy, and though you are directly responsible for these troops, bringing them home, their health and welfare, like Everything depends on you. So it's like a huge charge. During that time, me and my first sergeant Walker, he was awesome. We helped so many soldiers go to college. We helped so many soldiers save money. And I came to the realization that my dream wasn't everybody else's dream, right? Because I was like, I would always be like, okay, y'all go sign up for classes. Y'all can do this. Y'all have max time, because my first Army boss told me, like, hey, you don't have any kids, you're not married, like, hey, you need to go take classes. So my first duty station, I was taking a class at night, a class online, and a class on my lunch break, right? I was taking full advantage of it because I was young. But when I started trying to get soldiers to do that, I had one soldier say, ma'am, I don't want to go to school. I'm from Idaho. Like, all I want to do is save enough money to buy a red truck. And I was like, And I was like, so then it forced me to like do research. And I was like, well, you could go to trade school. Like, you can learn how to be a plumber or to be an engineer, like any one of these trades that they have, the Army will still pay for that. And you can go to financial readiness school. So it taught me to meet people where they are and not try to push my own agenda. I was always a reader. I love to read. So I always read really good self-help books. Like some of my favorite, like one of my most favorite book, I would say, is the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. I read that book multiple times in my career, and every time I find something different that sticks out to me, depending on where I am. And the laws, it's like 17 Laws of Teamwork by John Maxwell that I live by. And Good to Great is a good one, and then Boys on the Boat. But I've always been a reader, and I think because I'm such a people person and like people are drawn to me, that I don't know if this is a thing, so don't judge me on it, but like I'm an introvert, extrovert, right? Like I can be in the crowd and I can talk to anybody, but I also like cannot wait to get by myself to kind of like recharge, because it's like also like mentally exhausting. So I've always had that time. I'm a runner. So as I've gotten older, I'm a cycler now, the way my knees are set up. But I used to run. I used to like get off of work and literally run 10 to 12 miles just to clear my mind and talk to God. And that is my time to recharge. That is my time to kind of be grateful, because, a lot of times you complain about having a job or a position. Like, I have to go do this. I have to go do that. And you really have to shift your mindset to be like, I get to wake up and lead sons and daughters. I get to go to work and be a commander. I have this opportunity, and it kind of changes you to have like a grateful mindset. So I loved company command so much that I took a second command, and I was a recruiting commander of Fayetteville, North Carolina. I did that in 2018 to 2021. So I was a commander for 5 years, a company commander. But so going from like an expeditionary signal battalion to going to a recruiting where you see people transform from civilians to soldiers, and then they come back and they like, ma'am, I graduated. They got their uniform on. They paid their first cell phone bill. Like this does something that warms your heart. But I will tell you, that is the first time I had a leader. So my colonel there was Colonel Dan Mitchell. He's retired now, but he was a special forces guy. And he called me, interviewed me, said he wanted me. And I'm like, okay, knew nothing about recruiting. I get there and it's the largest mission in USAREC, right? We have to put 1,000 people in the Army in a year.
Whoa.
That part. And I was like, what have I gotten myself into? But when I tell you, this man, Colonel Mitchell, I will forever be grateful for him, because he believed in me. And he was like, you can absolutely do this. Look at your market. And he was like, they look like, when I tell you, empowered every doubt that I had and taught me everything I needed to know about my job. Like it trickled down to I had six different stations that I ran, including Fayetteville, Maine. And it trickled down to my station commanders. And it was just so empowering. So when you have the right leader in the right place that speaks life to you, it's contagious, right? It's like a wildfire. And I'm just so grateful. So when you experience that, you just want to pass that type of good feeling on to others. Yeah. And it was great. So I've had those two really great leaders that were such an integral part of my life. Well, really three, because I call my first boss that made me go to college, I call him my army dad, right? And I say that because he taught me about things in life that my parents couldn't teach me, because my parents are not college graduates. I am a first generation college grad. My brother's in graduate college. So I didn't even know anything about like going to college, becoming an officer. You know, Major Davis was like, what are you going to do today? And I was like, sir, whatever you need me to do. He was like, you're going to go sign up for college. And I was like, nice. Okay. And then like throughout my career, him and his wife, they just like prayed over my career, and they like he always checked in on me. He was like, you could be an officer. You could go to officer school. And I was like, really? And then he told me about West Point, and I was like, oh, I didn't even know about this. And like literally everything this man has spoke over my life, like has come to pass. And I would say that's God in him and his wife shining through. But like having people, I think like where your parents lack, or not even where they lack, but just like once like your parents did their job and they springboarded me into life. And then it's like God put little rams in the bushes throughout my life that were like kept me on track. And so that's kind of like I've always spent time by myself. I think because I'm 10 years, my youngest brother is 10 years older than me. So if I'm about to be 39, Dre's about to be 49, right? So when he went to college, I was like 7, and I was like devastated. Like, you can't leave me, because we were like best friends. But so I kind of grew up as an only child. So I really like that time to myself. I would get done with all of the practices of my athletic events, and I would come home in my room. Didn't have a TV. We had like 2 TVs in the house, right? One in the living room, one in my parents' room. All I had was a radio, and I would shower and I would listen to like old Smokey Robinson CDs that my mom had. But that time alone is like something that I still really enjoy. I don't mind being by myself. And I think that is like when I can hear God's voice the clearest. And I think that's what empowers me and recharges me to help other people. And I think having such good parents and having good leaders at a young point in my career and throughout my integral parts of my career really shapes the way I deal with people today and how I handle them. I think my last boss, I will say, he had a really big part of my career, because I told you that deployment was hard. And I've never worked for anybody. Now I think, you think I'm smart. I think you're smart, but this man is pretty outstanding. He went to Oxford. He's a Rhodes Scholar. Right. Colonel Benedict. And when I met him, I was like, oh gosh, I don't know if I'm ready for the job, because I was like a CTO of a 4,500 person organization. So I'm the senior signal person that does all things IT for this 4,500 person organization. And he would come talk to me about things he would want to do. And I would have to be like, okay, sir, like, this is our capability. If you want this is what I'm going to need to make it happen. And like, we would have very frank conversations, and he would push me to my limits. And I will tell you, I grew so much in that position, and he believed in me, and he saw past, like, I don't know. He just believed in me, and he empowered me to be great. And he'd be like, well, okay, if you need this, then go do it. Like, and he just created a team. Boys on the Boat was his thing. He likes rowing. So he made us watch the book. He made us watch the movie together as a unit. We all went to the movies and we watched it. We read the book. We talked about it. And he took us out in a rowboat, and we realized how hard it was.
Oh gosh, yes.
Try to row, and how everybody had to be in sync and listen to the person. So it's like a person that sits in the front of the boat, and they're like telling us when to go. And I was like, this is really hard. I've done a lot of sports, but I haven't done this one. So when I say open my aperture and believed in me, he was such an inspiration. And it doesn't always have to look like you, right? So out of the 4 leaders that I named, 2 were white male, 2 were African American. Has nothing to do with it. Has nothing to do with it. When I say you can draw inspiration from anybody, that is something I will say to the audience listening. Do not put your inspiration, put a demographic, or put a certain stereotype on what inspiration looks like, because it could come from anywhere, and not all of the world is bad. And I've been blessed to have some great leaders, and that really does affect how, like I said, how I interact with people and how I treat people today. So I hope I answered your question
Oh
without
my
giving
God,
you the.
did you ever answer the question, which is so cool. And what's so cool about it, or so neat about it, that I would love to say is that you have found the ability that a lot of introverts struggle with, and that's how to show up as an extrovert when you need to. And so much even better than a lot of the extroverts that are out there, because extroverts draw their energy from the crowd and don't take that time to reflect all the time. They just always want to be around the crowd. Where some of your best leaders in the world are super introverts, but they've learned how to show up, in spaces with other people where they're able to give energy, even though and find energy in it, as long as you give them the space to go back, reflect, and recharge. And so it's so cool that you've been able to find out how to do that. And one of the other things that I think that I'm hearing that you say is, the people that showed up in your life, that fed into you, that, had you been blessed by. Sometimes I think by us being willing and able, we attract the right people into our spaces, into our worlds, because of our willingness. You said, you talked about being a servant leader. And then I think of, like, I can't imagine all the captains that are part of the United States Army are servant leaders. It's just not all leaders are. So maybe just kind of talk about that a little bit. When we actually have another person that on Facebook who said, "You go, so a sister soldier." So I just wanted, that was a comment that jumped onto the thing that I thought was really cool. But maybe just kind of talk about how, once you get around somebody that can take you somewhere, how were you able to stop talking and learn? Because so many of us, or so many people who are striving, always want to be the center of that conversation or that track. You talked about having frank conversations. You talked about them feeding into you. Well, they can't do that if you're not willing to absorb, if you're always the one trying to show them. So maybe kind of talk about your journey in being, to learn to be a servant leader, and what that meant as being, I don't know what the word is, because I don't want to say something like submissive or, something like
No,
that, because that's not strong, but maybe you can walk me through that.
the
Yeah.
sponge, right? Because I will say one thing that all four of those leaders had in common was every interaction with them was a learning interaction. And
Okay.
it's so you didn't crave to talk when you were in the room. It's like, and they wasn't like the star of the show either. It was kind of like that quiet leadership, kind of like where you see in President Barack Obama, right? Where he pulls somebody to the side and be like, hey. And he wasn't always in the spotlight, but you knew he was like dropping gems on the side. Every interaction with them, I learned something. And every time, and I think it's like a military thing, but every time somebody who outranks you is talking to you, I know this is how I am. I always have a pen and a paper. I'm taking notes. I'm like, yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I'm taking notes. And then if they're not talking directly to me and I'm listening to them, I'll write down things I don't understand. I go back later and I research it. And I'm like, now I can have a conversation about it. Right. But something you said earlier, and I was like, oh, and I lit up The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. Have you ever read that book?
I love that book. It's one of my favorites.
I love that. I read that book on my first deployment to the Middle East. And when you said that maybe there's something about you that draws these people to you, that made me think of The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. And when I read that book in the Middle East, I was like, wow, like you can literally will your life to be better than it is, just by having the purest of intentions and desires. So I will say that, like, I wasn't always talking. Most of the time when I interacted with them, maybe if it was a social event, then I would like talk and laugh, but I was in receive mode because I knew I saw something in them that I wanted to emulate or I wanted to be. And I always had a pen and paper. Like, you have to know when you're the teacher and know when you're the pupil, and be humble enough to listen. And I've listened quite a deal, and I'm grateful because I would have missed something trying to be the star of the show every time.
Alyca, you have so much wisdom in just this last hour that we've been talking in or 50 minutes, whatever it's been. And I hope people, if you're watching this and you just kind of gone back, I hope you'll go back and listen to just deep listen to some of the ways that she reacted, some of the things that she's read, the amount of time she spent on working on herself, and the things you're just saying right now is like I became a sponge. I didn't need to be the star of the show. And yet the blessing that comes from it is you continue to move forward. I want you to talk about, we got about 10 minutes left, and I know there's some things that you wanted to talk about. I'm selfish because I'm asking these questions that I know are helping me. But I wanted you to kind of talk about your future. And I know we kind of started out about living in purpose, and we started out, and you want to kind of talk about some of the, you like you said, you get to go present a paper and some of the things that you get to do in this world, as we're going to call you Dr. Sweet here pretty soon, very soon. And what that means to you and your thoughts on your future a little bit. So maybe just kind of walk us through, up and coming and, what's there for Dr. Sweet.
What's there for Dr. Sweet? So I was selected to be a research scientist, right? The Army has a thing called the Army Cyber Institute. So it sits on West Point's campus, and I was selected. I put in a packet, and I was like, oh man, this would be cool. And then I got selected, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm ready to go be a research scientist. They was like, no, you have to get your PhD first. And I was like, oh, but I already have 2 masters. I don't think I want to go back to school. And I had an amazing, I would call her a mentor that's already there. So she selected me, and she was like, you can absolutely do this. And I was like, oh gosh. And I was like, I don't even know what I would want to study. And like I said, this whole first year of my PhD, I just finished my first year. I've learned how much I really don't know. And then I've learned what excites me, because I had some professors, say like you have to publish your peril, right? Like you have to publish to stay relevant in academia. And I was like, oh wow. And so you learn about the basket of 10, or like whatever your field is, like the top 12 journals in your field. For me, it was information systems. And like you have to try to get into those A journals, not the B journals, right? And I'm like, well, that's not really my passion, right? Because if you're not helping improve the life of somebody, then what are you doing? Right. Yeah, and that's something that I will say, being in this civilian aspect, it really puts it into perspective for me, because every day I put on my uniform, I don't question, am I going to help somebody? Absolutely. Every single day, instant gratification. I'm helping people right and left. Here, I'm learning, and I almost I cried so much my first year. I felt like I was being selfish, because I'm like, I'm just going to school and I'm not helping anybody. But then I like I said, like I spend a lot of time alone. And then when I feel like the dumpster is on fire, I will just take a nap. And I know that sounds crazy, but like when I'm overwhelmed, I just take a nap, and then I wake up and I try again. And I feel like I have like a fresh start. But so I take naps, and I wake up, and I'm like, you know what? And I've come to the epiphany that I can publish things that will help people. And in that way, I'm still serving, and I'm still helping improve the life of others. So I'll have 2 more years left of this journey at LSU, and then I will go up to West Point, to the Army Cyber Institute, finish my dissertation there, come back and graduate, and then be a research scientist at the Army Cyber Institute. So I'll probably ride my days out and retire from there, because you got to think then I'll be like at 26, 27 years in. And I don't want to be one of those people that retire and look like I did that many years in the military. Like I still want to look pretty, sort of like feminine. I don't want to look hard, So and like I said, that melting ice cube is now more so at the forefront of my mind more than ever. Whereas like I can't stop the time, right? Izzy just started 4th grade. Maddie's in her 2nd year of college, and it's like I can't continue to save everybody else's son and daughter if I'm not there for my own. And that's becoming more relevant and more important to me, because it's like I gotta be there and show up for the the little girls, the little brown girls that look like me. And that's important. So
Oh, so
that's in
good.
my household, right? So yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, I want you to go do the research stuff. I want you to go do the super smart, intelligent stuff that, there'll be like 9 people in the world who understand all your research and what you wrote and how you're gonna. But what I really want you to do at some point is I want you to write us a book. I want you to write us your journey and the things that you've done and how you've helped people and how you've grown as a leader and the things that we'll be able to take. It'll come from your research and your ability to do it and the super technical stuff you do, but you have such a heart for helping people and helping people just become. I mean, I'm thinking of the guy who wants to buy a truck, and then what his life looks like now because you were in it. And I don't know if all that comes from some of the high technical research that you do
And
that
I'm and
might.
I
Yeah.
think about like, what if I would have what if I want to go to what if I would have said, wrote him off and said, you don't want to go to college, and I didn't help him? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm so glad that I was able to meet him where he was. And you said you want me to do all of the things. Everybody says they want me to do all of the things, but it's bigger than that because I'm like, it's somebody, some girl somewhere that will see me and say she can do it because she saw me do it. Right. And I have to keep that in mind too, as I'm like eyeing the exit door. I'm like, but it's a bigger purpose. And I think I'll know when it's time. Everybody who's retired says that you'll know when it's time to retire. I'm still having fun. I cannot believe it's been 21 years. And I'm still having such a great time in doing what I do. And I just thank God for giving me a heart to serve, because the people that helped me didn't have to help me. Right. And so I'm really grateful that they helped me, and that's why I continue to help others. Like, you have to pay it forward. Not to cut you off. I'm so sorry.
Oh no, you didn't cut me off at all. You said exactly what I wanted you to say, so it's even better. Um, it has been such a pleasure having you on. I can't wait to have many more conversations with you and to see your life grow and to see what 10 years from now looks like, to see what 15 years looks like. It doesn't matter what your profession is. It matters who you are as a person and how you're impacting the world. And I think you have such great things. You remind me a lot of Marcy Ying, who, was the first Black naval helicopter pilot, and where she's at in her life now. And, I was able to interview her, and I just see so much of you in her and even beyond that. And it's just so neat to watch you. And I can't wait to see you grow and move forward. What final thoughts would you love to give our audience today as we close this off? And like I said, I promise you this, you're not hearing the end of Alyca, but maybe some thoughts that they can take away and be able to apply in their lives right now.
So I will go with the title of the podcast, right? Living boldly with purpose. If it scares you, then you're probably doing the right thing. You absolutely have to get out of your comfort zone, because so many people in my hometown, I remember, like, that did not leave. And I'm so glad that I got on that plane. I'm so glad that I left and I saw something else, because it really changes your perspective on life and it just opens you up. So don't be afraid to leave. Don't be afraid to try the new thing. And the golden rule still applies in 2025. Like, treat people the way you want to be treated. And it's not that hard. It's not that hard. So that would be the things that I would say to live boldly with purpose. For me, it's just boldly with purpose. What does that mean? Like, just staying true to your belief system. Because, like I said, when I'm not doing something that's helping others, I almost feel like it's being selfish. Like, if it's not like self-care, like at the spa, on a cruise, like sleeping, like if I, like me just pursuing my academic goals, it really felt selfish. And I was like, I could be helping so many people. Like, what am I doing? Like, I almost like got anxiety about not helping somebody directly. And then when I figured out how to convert academia to helping others, it set right with my spirit. So make sure that what you're doing aligns aligns with you and it makes you feel good. Because when it makes you feel good and you're happy, like you don't feel like 21 years will go by. And I think that's probably why I'm so passionate about my topic, like mitigating techno stress, because I want everybody in uniform to be proud to serve, to be happy to serve. I don't want anybody to be so stressed out that they to the brink of anxiety. Like there's a way that you can do one and still have like a positive, healthy work environment. I've always been positive, and I've always believed in that. Work should not bring you that much stress. Technology shouldn't bring you that much stress. So I will say that stay true to who you are. Don't change, evolve, but don't change your core values.
Love it. Well, thank you so much. I know Lisa and I had a plan for this podcast, but I think God had another plan, and I just so need to see what we got to talk about. And so go back and listen to it. If this is your first podcast that you've ever listened to, there's Living Boldly with Purpose. Hit subscribe, hit notifications, so you get to see more and more of these incredible people that continue to come on. Not because I'm anything, but because God has put them in place to be able to speak directly to you and exactly where you are wanting to be and where to listen. And I want you to forget that you are God's greatest gift. He loves you if you allow him to. And we will look forward to talking to you on the next one. Lisa, again, thank you for being on. And you guys have an amazing, awesome, just incredible day.